In June of 1985, the Conservative government of then Prime Minister Brian Mulroney had decided to de-index the old age security so that it wouldn't keep indexed in step with rising inflation costs. And in that same month, Prime Minister Mulroney had gone for a stroll outside of the Parliament buildings, and the TV cameras were following his every move, and he kind of glad-handed surprised tourists until a 63-year-old Quebecer, Solange Denis, stopped, pointed her finger at Mulroney and said to him, "You lied. You made promises you wouldn't touch OAS." And then she uttered her most famous line, "It's goodbye, Charlie." Mulroney was apparently speechless, and the TV news broadcasts were filled with this moment. In fact, the government knew following that Denis, a sole woman from Quebec, had defeated their entire plan for the OAS, and it was subsequently withdrawn. The Syro-Phoenician woman may have well taken her beloved daughter, who was suffering with what the scriptures call an unclean spirit, a malady which afflicted many in the first century, to see the family doctor, whose first response was, "So what did your daughter do to acquire an unclean spirit?" The woman hugged her daughter, got up and left the office. And then she called the regional health line only to hear their suggestion, "You really need to learn to live with this. Life is life." But then she heard that a rural rabbi who was known for performing miracles had come into the region of Tyre. Jesus, as you heard, was tired. The disciples, he told them, "Don't let anyone come in under any condition." And you can imagine how this incredible woman telling the disciples, "Look, my daughter is ill. I can't get help anywhere else. Speak to your master. Let me through those closed doors. I know that he will help." And somehow, the text doesn't tell us, the Syro-Phoenician woman gets past the barricades and throws herself down at Jesus' feet and begs for help for her child. To which Jesus rather rudely puts her off. "I have come only for the Jews first. You get in line and we'll see you maybe later." But the woman, whose love for her daughter is beyond measure, retorts that even the dogs, even the total and complete outsiders, will still eat the crumbs that are swept off the evening supper table. And Jesus is changed. Jesus sees God's wisdom and love, and most especially faith, in this woman, and says to her simply, "Head home. Your daughter is well." I was trying to imagine this week that moment when the woman walks through the door of her home to see her daughter up and playing and laughing. And as the text says, the demon was gone. What a breath of relief, of gratitude, of joy must have filled her soul in that moment. Reverend Ed Marquardt recalls coming home to find that his 3-year-old daughter had been badly bitten across her face by a dog, and rushing her to the hospital and seeing her lying there on a gurney. And 30 years later, he says, the remembrance is still like it happened yesterday. Parents have been there. When I read this text, what kind of jumped out at me was how much the woman loved her daughter. It's a complex text, and the focus is often on Jesus' rudeness to the woman and Jesus' change of heart, and possibly because of our own adult children being home and telling old stories around the supper table. On reading this text, that kind of blared out at me. this woman did what she did. She found a courage and a strength and a perseverance which was exceptional because she loved her ill daughter so much. She was prepared to go to all lengths to heal her. A few years ago, a member of the congregation I was serving was on social assistance, and she asked me to come with her to see her dentist. She said he had always been gruff and rude to her, knowing that she was on assistance. So I went with her and I simply introduced myself as the woman's minister and her friend, and with her permission stayed in the exam room during the visit. And she told me on the way home that this time the dentist was extremely pleasant and even kind to her. And years later she told me that he continued to be kind and pleasant to her for all the years afterwards. And she believed that it was my attendance which changed that relationship. David Lose says and believes that the heart of this story is advocacy. The story would not have been recorded. The story would have never happened if the Syrophoenician woman had not been such a persistent, such a courageous advocate for her own daughter. Indeed, one commentator says that for Mark, the woman is a prophet. And Gail O'Day notes that it's the woman's courage, her courage, which affects this remarkable, unbelievable change in Jesus. What has certainly become true in our health system, and has been true in the rest of the world for much longer, is that you absolutely need an advocate if you're going to get serious attention for your illness or your disease. Someone commented to me just this week, "I don't know how patients can do it on their own." It seems to be true, whether you're in long-term care or in an acute care bed in a hospital. Patients who have an advocate are more likely to get treatment and care. The United Church, of which we are so much a part, from its birth has been a church whose heartbeat is advocacy. Watch later in this morning's service for the message from our moderator, advocating our support for getting the COVID vaccine to people in the southern hemisphere of the world. People who have no voice, people who do not have the resources as we do in the north. People like the Syrophoenician woman, who are outsiders in every measure and need an advocate, need an ally. Lose suggests that congregations look around their own neighborhood, seek out those voiceless, marginalized, outside people and advocate for them, as the woman advocated so powerfully for her own daughter. There is one last question I want to wrestle with briefly from this text. Is faith about persistence and going against the flow? Is that what caught Mark, the gospel writer's attention in this story of Jesus and the woman and her ill child? She would not give up. Others came and went. Others would have seen the closed-off doors of Jesus' bedroom or office and simply headed home upset and discouraged. But this woman kept going, kept advocating, and I think kept the image of her ill daughter first and foremost in her mind. Is that how Jesus wants us to live the faith each and every day? With that kind of dogged determination, which will not stop until we see light on the horizon of change and of hope. And what of our affliction of going with the flow, of following the crowd, of doing what everyone else is doing? I've been pondering since my vacation in Manitoba how some of the public health officials are advocating in those rural municipalities in southern Manitoba where vaccination rates are as low as 15%. And yet they keep at it. They keep confronting the misinformation, trying to assuage the fear and help those who are distrustful. I think it must be lonely. If faith is going against the flow, then where do we need to change course? Need to turn 180 and head in a new direction? Where is Jesus calling us today? And in what stranger, in what unexpected advocate, in what woman seeking help for her daughter, does Jesus see that remarkable faith today? May God be our guide and our help. Amen.